Okay, let's unpack this today because we are looking at one of the most famous and, to be honest, one of the most difficult moments in the Book of Mormon.
Oh, yeah. It's a jarring start right off the bat.
It really is. I mean, you open the book and maybe you're expecting faith, repentance, maybe a Sermon on the Mount kind of vibe. But only 4 chapters in, the hero of the story, a young man named Nephi, finds a man passed out drunk in the street and chops his head off.
There's just no way around it. It is violent, it's intimate, and it's completely shocking.
And for a lot of modern readers, it's a massive stumbling block. You read that and you think, wait a minute, isn't this the good guy? Is this just cold-blooded murder?
Right.
The text says God commanded it, but that honestly raises even more uncomfortable questions about religious violence.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at this event with 21st century eyes, it just looks like a crime. But the mission for this deep dive today is to see if we can take off our modern glasses, all our modern legal assumptions, and put on the lenses of a Hebrew living in Jerusalem around 600 BCE.
So we are essentially stepping into a completely different legal world.
We are time traveling. We're going to look at the first-hand narrative in 1 Nephi chapters 3 and 4, but we're going to layer on some serious scholarly analysis. Specifically, we're pulling from legal scholar John Welch and others to examine the legal and cultural precedents of that exact time.
Because the argument isn't just, God said so, therefore it's fine.
No, not at all. That's usually the Sunday school answer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But the deeper argument here is that under the law of Moses, which is the actual civil and religious code that both Nephi and Laban lived under, there's a complex legal framework. We're talking about the definitions of manslaughter versus murder and the specific capital crimes that Laban himself committed that made him liable for execution.
So this is less of a random act of violence in a dark alley and more of a legal proceeding.
In a way, yes. It's a courtroom drama where the judge is the spirit and the executioner is the plaintiff.
Wow. Okay, I want to get to the beheading, and we definitely have to talk about the sword, but we need to set the stakes first. Because this doesn't just happen in a vacuum. You have Lehi, the father, who is a prophet. He's fled Jerusalem with his family because the city is about to be destroyed. But then he slams on the brakes.
Right. He realizes they forgot something absolutely essential.
The brass plates.
The brass plates. These are the scriptures, the 5 books of Moses, the genealogy of their fathers, the prophecies.
And Lehi tells his sons, Laman, Lemuel, Sam, and Nephi, to go back and get them. Now, I have to ask you, is this just about having a Bible to read on the camping trip? Why is this worth risking their lives for?
That is the critical context here. It's not just a book. In the ancient Near East, written records were the absolute anchor of identity. Lehi knows that if they go into the wilderness without the written law, his descendants will eventually lose their language.
And their religion.
They will lose their religion entirely. They will, as the text actually says later, dwindle in unbelief.
So it's an existential mission. If they fail, their civilization effectively dies before it even begins.
Exactly. The survival of the nation depends completely on this record.
So the 4 brothers go back to Jerusalem. And this is where the story gets really interesting to me, because it shows they didn't want violence. They actually tried to do this the right way. They made 3 distinct attempts.
And you really have to look at the escalation of those attempts. If you just skip the first 2, the third one, the killing makes absolutely no sense.
Right. So let's look at attempt number 1. They send in Laman. I've always wondered, why him? Is it just because he's the oldest?
Likely, yes. In that culture, the firstborn carries the authority of the father. He's the family representative. So Laman goes to Laban's house, knocks on the door, and just asks for the records.
And Laban is, well, he's not receptive.
To put it mildly, we need to understand who Laban actually is. He isn't just some librarian holding onto a book. He is a military commander. He commands a garrison of 50 men. He is a powerful, wealthy aristocrat in Jerusalem. And here comes Laman from a family that has effectively been disgraced because his father Lehi has been publicly preaching against the status quo in the city.
So there is a massive power imbalance right out of the gate.
Huge. And when Laman asks for the plates, Laban gets furious. He actually calls Laman a robber.
He calls him a robber. That seems like a weird insult to throw out. Just, you're a thief.
It's not just an insult, though. In that legal context, words really mattered. By labeling Laman a robber, Laban is formally accusing him of banditry. In the ancient world, robbers were outsiders. They were enemies of the social order. It's literally an accusation of a capital crime. Laban is essentially stripping Laman of his legal rights and threatening to slay him on the spot.
So Laman runs for his life.
Yeah.
Attempt 1 is total failure. Laban and Lemuel want to quit, but Nephi rallies them with that famous "I will go and do" speech. So they try attempt number 2, the commercial approach.
The buyout.
Yeah. They go back to their family home, which is apparently abandoned, and gather up everything. Gold, silver, precious things. It sounds like they are liquidating their entire inheritance.
They are. They bring this massive fortune to Laban and offer a straight trade. The plates for the gold.
Which, frankly, seems like a fantastic deal for Laban. He gets the money, they get the book, everybody wins.
But Laban is corrupt. The text points out that he sees the property and lusts after it, so he throws them out. But, and here's a key pivot point, he keeps the property.
He takes the money and refuses to hand over the product.
Worse than that, he sends his servants to kill them. He wants the gold, but he can't leave witnesses.
Okay, so let's pause and look at the rap sheet here, if we can call it that. Laban has now stolen an absolute fortune, and he has ordered a hit on 4 men.
Legally, this changes everything. Laban has transitioned from a grumpy official to a thief and an attempted murderer. He has broken the covenant law. He has committed acts that, under the law of Moses, would require either restitution or death.
But who is going to arrest him? He's the guy with the army.
That's exactly the problem. There is no police force to call. Laban is the law in this sector. This is a total breakdown of civil order.
So the brothers run away, they hide in a cave. And the human drama here is really palpable. Laban and Lemuel are furious. They actually start beating the younger brothers. They're terrified.
And rightfully so. Laban's objection is very realistic. He says, Laban can command 50, yea, even he can slay 50. They are up against a warlord.
And then an angel appears.
Yeah.
Stops the abuse. And the angel tells him to go back again, promising that the Lord will deliver Laban into your hands.
Which is a very specific phrase, a liver into your hands. Keep that in mind.
So this leads to the 3rd attempt. Nephi goes in alone. It's night. He creeps into the city. And he says something really interesting. He says, I was led by the Spirit, not knowing beforehand the things which I should do.
That phrase, not knowing beforehand, is the absolute linchpin of the legal defense we're going to talk about.
We'll definitely come back to that. So he finds a man passed out, dead drunk, near the treasury. It's Laban.
The very man who tried to murder them hours earlier.
And Laban is wearing his sword. Now, Nephi stops to describe this sword. And he doesn't just say it was sharp. He talks about the hilt being pure gold, the workmanship being exceedingly fine, the blade being precious steel.
He's mesmerized by it.
It sounds like more than just a weapon. It sounds like a symbol.
It is a symbol. In the ancient world, a weapon of that quality gold hilt, precious steel, is a royal insignia. It represents authority. By taking that sword, Nephi isn't just disarming an enemy.
He is about to assume command.
Exactly.
But before he takes it, the Spirit speaks. And the command is blunt.
Growl.
Slay him.
And Nephi says no.
He resists.
Huh.
I think people forget that. He says, never at any time have I shed the blood of man. He shrinks back. He does not want to do this.
This internal struggle is vital to understand. It tells us this isn't a crime of passion. He isn't flying into a rage because Laban stole his money. He is terrified and horrified by the command. He knows the Torah, thou shalt not kill.
So he's caught between 2 commandments. The written law says don't kill, but the immediate voice of God says slay him. How does he reconcile that?
This is where we have to bring in John Welch's analysis and what we might call the Exodus defense.
Okay, walk us through this. Because to a modern listener, the Spirit told me to do it sounds like a kind of thing you hear from people who end up on the evening news for all the wrong reasons. How is this legally justified?
We have to look at Exodus chapter 21, verses 12 through 14. This is the statute regarding homicide in the law of Moses.
What does it actually say?
The general rule is in verse 12. It says, he that smiteth a man so that he die shall be surely put to death. That's murder, capital punishment.
Very straightforward.
But then comes the exception, verse 13. It says, and if a man lie not in wait, but God deliver him into his hand, then I will appoint thee a place whither he shall flee.
Lie not in wait. That means premeditation, right?
Exactly. If you plan it, if you hunt the guy down, if you are lurking in the shadows waiting to strike, that is murder. You die. But if you didn't plan it, if you didn't lie in wait, and if the encounter happens because God delivered him into your hand, it is considered a justifiable homicide or manslaughter, and the killer is allowed to flee to a designated place of safety.
Hold on, though. That sounds a little convenient, doesn't it? I didn't plan it. God just put him there. I mean, any defense attorney today would tear that apart. Does that argument actually hold water in ancient law?
In the ancient context, yes, it does. The lack of intent was the key differentiator. And look at Nephi's narrative again. He explicitly records, I went in not knowing beforehand. He is effectively filing a legal brief here. He is stating for the record, I had no plan. I did not lie in wait.
And the angel and the spirit keep using that specific phrase. The Lord has delivered him into thy hands.
Precisely. They are quoting the statute from Exodus 21 directly. The spirit is essentially telling Nephi, this situation fits the legal criteria for the exception. It wasn't planned. It was divinely orchestrated. Therefore, under the law, you are justified, provided you flee.
Which he does. He grabs the plates and leaves the jurisdiction immediately. He goes to the promised land, which acts as his city of refuge.
Right. He accepts exile, which completely fits the legal pattern.
Okay, so that covers Nephi's side of the street. He didn't plan it. But what about Laban? Just because Nephi didn't plan it, does that make it okay to kill a drunk man? Laban was completely defenseless at that moment.
That is the other half of the legal argument. We have to look at the crimes of Laban. This was not an innocent man.
We mentioned he was a thief and he tried to kill him.
Yes. And we also need to look at the law of false witness in Deuteronomy 19.
False witness, so that's lying in court.
It's much more serious than just lying. The law of the talon, an eye for an eye applied to false accusations too. The law states that if you bear false witness against someone, the punishment you receive should be the exact same punishment you intended for the accused.
Oh, wow. So if I accuse you of stealing a sheep, I just have to pay for a sheep. But if I accuse you of murder...
Then you face the death penalty, because that is the fate you tried to bring upon me. Now remember what Laban did to Laban?
He called him a robber.
Right, and as we discussed earlier, being a robber or a bandit was a capital offense. Laban falsely accused Laban of a crime punishable by death, and then he doubled down and actually sent servants to kill them to steal their property.
So by falsely accusing them of a capital crime and then attempting to murder them, Laban had legally brought the death penalty upon himself.
Under the law of Moses, yes. He was a robber, he took their gold, and a false witness who sought their blood. John Welch argues that if there had been a fair trial in Jerusalem that day, Laban would have been executed for his crimes against Lehi's family.
But there was no way they were getting a fair trial.
No. Laban was the commander. He was the system. So in the absence of a civil court that could function, the spirit acts as the judge, and Nephi is conscripted as the executioner.
That makes the spirit's justification in the text land a bit differently. Because verse 13 says, it is better that one man should perish than that a nation should dwindle and perish in unbelief.
That is the utilitarian argument. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one.
It sounds harsh, though. Better that one man perish. It feels very cold.
It does to us. But the expert analysis points out that this wasn't a unique idea to a Hebrew. There are historical precedents for this one-man principle in their culture.
Like who?
Think about the story of Sheba in 2 Samuel chapter 20. Sheba is a rebel against King David. He hides in a city called Abel. The king's general surrounds the city and basically prepares to destroy the entire place, men, women, children, just to catch this one rebel.
That's extreme.
It is. But a wise woman from the city yells over the wall, essentially saying, why destroy everyone? The general says, give me Sheba and I'll leave. So the people of the city cut off Sheba's head and throw it over the wall.
Yikes. But the city was saved.
Exactly. One man died so the community didn't perish. Ancient Israel understood that sometimes extreme action is required to preserve the nation.
And in this case, the nation was Lehi's family and the entire future civilization that would eventually come from them.
Right. If Nephi walks away, that civilization grows up without the Bible. They lose their connection to God. The Spirit is arguing that the spiritual death of a nation is worse than the physical death of one wicked man.
It's also worth bringing in a bit of the apologetic context here. The sources mention the philosophy of divine command. People always ask, how can a good God command violence?
It's arguably the hardest question in theology, but scholars like William Lane Craig argue that God often waits for justice. In the biblical narrative, God waits centuries before judging the Canaanites, for example. He gives people time.
And Laban had time.
He did. He had 2 chances that very day. The brothers came to him twice. Laban could have just sold the plates. He could have been a reasonable official. Instead, he chose violence. He chose theft. He completely rejected the off-ramp.
He sealed his own fate.
He really did.
Okay, so the deed is done. Nephi kills Laban. But the story doesn't end there. And this is where it turns into a heist movie. Nephi puts on Laban's clothes.
The disguise. He puts on the armor, which honestly must have been bloodied, though the text doesn't dwell on it, and mimics Laban's voice.
And he walks right into Laban's treasury. And he runs into Zoram, the servant who has the keys. This part is so tense to read. Zoram thinks Nephi is Laban. He starts chatting with him about the elders of the Jews and official business.
It just shows that Nephi had to be incredibly composed. He's just killed a man, he's wearing the man's armor, and he's pulling off an impersonation while his heart must have been pounding out of his chest.
They get the plates, they head out to the city gates. But when they get outside the walls, Zoram sees Laman and Lemuel hiding in the bushes. And he realizes, wait, this isn't my master.
And Zoram panics. He tries to bolt back to the city.
And this is where the story shifts for me. We've been talking about death and judgment this whole time. But with Zoram, the story becomes about something else entirely. It becomes about liberation.
It does. Nephi catches Zoram. Remember, Nephi's a big guy. He says he's large in stature, and he holds him. But he doesn't threaten to kill him. He doesn't silence him with violence.
No. He offers him an oath. He says, as the Lord liveth, and as I live.
Do not underestimate the power of those words. That is the most binding oath you can make in the ancient Near East. It is unbreakable. By swearing by the Lord and his own life, Nephi is putting his soul on the line.
And the offer he makes is amazing. He says, if you come with us, you will be a free man like unto us.
Think about the weight of that for Zoram. He's a servant, likely a slave or a bondservant to Laban. In that world, social mobility was basically zero. If you were born a servant, you died a servant.
And here's Nephi offering him full equality.
Exactly. He's saying, you won't be our servant in the wilderness. You will be our brother. He is offering him a seat at the table.
And Zoram takes the deal.
He does. He swears an oath in return, and the text says immediately our fears did cease concerning him. That's the power of the oath. Once he said it, the danger was gone. He was family.
It really is a freedom story for Zoram. He escapes a corrupt master, a man who was willing to kill for money, and joins a new civilization as a completely free man.
It's a beautiful counterpoint to the violence of the earlier chapters. Laban's death serves two life-giving purposes. It secures the scriptures for a future nation, and it breaks the chains of Zoram.
So let's bring this all together. We've gone pretty deep into the legal weeds today.
Yeah.
What does this all mean for you as the listener?
I think the big takeaway is that we have to be very careful about judging ancient actions by modern standards. When you read 1 Nephi chapter 4, it's easy to just see a crime, but when you look closer, you see a culturally consistent narrative. It ticks the boxes of the law of Moses, lack of premeditation, divine delivery, punishment for false witness, and the necessity of saving the community.
It's a legal proceeding carried out by the Spirit because the earthly courts were broken.
Precisely. And there's a theological layer here, too. The source material mentions that some Christian scholars see a type and shadow here.
A type and shadow of what exactly?
Of the central story of Christianity. It is better that one man should perish than that a nation should dwindle. In the New Testament, the high priest Caiaphas actually uses almost those exact words about Jesus, that it's better for one man to die for the people.
That is a really heavy parallel. So Laban, the wicked man, dies to save the nation physically. And later, Christ, the perfect man, dies to save everyone eternally.
It's that recurring ancient theme. Sacrifice is necessary for salvation. Sometimes that sacrifice is voluntary, like Christ. Sometimes, like Laban, it's the consequence of wickedness. But the principle stands, the one for the many.
That really changes how you read that chapter. It's not just a stumbling block. It actually sets up a whole legal and theological argument of the entire book.
It establishes Nephi not just as a prophet, but as a lawful leader who is willing to do the hard thing, the impossible thing, to preserve his people's connection to God.
So here's a final thought to leave you with today. We often talk about morality as being black and white. Thou shalt not kill, period. But this story suggests the line is a lot more complex when you factor in the massive weight of leadership and survival.
It raises a really difficult question. Where is the line between personal purity, Nephi's profound desire not to have blood on his hands, and the necessity of preserving a culture or a nation? Because if Nephi had stayed pure and refused to act, his descendants would have been lost. He had to carry that burden to save his people.
Is it better to be personally guilt-free if it means everyone else is lost? That is a tough question for anyone to answer.
It really is the burden of leadership.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the legal files of 600 BCE. It's been a fascinating look at a really tough text.
Always a pleasure to dig deeper.
We'll catch you on the next one. Keep diving deep.